Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho.
Lighten up, Francis.
You're listening to The Review on the OSG Podcasting Network.
Thank you, Tommy Palmer, and welcome to The Review. We're glad you're listening to us on our podcatchers, our host site Spreaker, SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, Apple iTunes, Spotify, and of course on the OSG phone app on your Android or Apple device. John Wilkerson here. There's John there. There's Phil there. And we are in the bowl season. And a gaggle. Yes, we're being bowled over with college football. We've got our first cluster of bowls from the weekend. And we can go over those games a little later. But what I'm noticing in the bowl season, especially in the early rounds, is these things are invitation only, and several people have declined the invitation. It's been very sparse finding fans at the venues.
Tight shots, nothing but tight shots.
It was interesting. I watched a little bit of my alma mater, who played in a game this past Saturday, that being Georgia Southern. And it was interesting. A couple of the alumni fan groups that I follow were super excited about going and trying to push people to buy tickets and this, that, and the other. But it still was basically an empty house. Mm-hmm. And I've gone on about this more times than I could probably even count about how, to me, bowl games, it doesn't really matter if anybody shows up because the committees force the teams to buy the tickets, so those tickets are paid for one way or the other, and they have sponsors. So at the end of the day, as long as the game's on TV and the game gets played, it doesn't really matter to them who shows up.
Now have more fun, win more prizes too, with Larry Kinney on Bowling for Dollars, the show that lets you play and win at home.
All right, let's look at the round of bowl games that we've already been through quickly. Makers Wanted Bahamas Bowl is a sponsorship for an industrial area in suburban Chicago. It is $300,000 for that city to renew the sponsorship and the title sponsorship for the Bahamas Bowl. They claim that it was worth $12 million in business and exposure for them to continue to be the title sponsor of this bowl. So it worked for Elk Grove Village, Illinois, I think is the name of the town, but nevertheless, $300,000 investment for them turned into allegedly $12 million of capital. So as long as that continues to happen, Makers Wanted is going to be the tagline for the Bahamas Bowl. Frisco, as long as Tropical Smoothie Cafe, I guess, got in their ads and they got in their sponsorship and they got in their stickers all over the place and the ad placement, I guess they'll be happy. The game itself was very entertaining for those who decided to watch with Kent and Utah State. It was 92 points. It was fantastic to see. R&L Carriers, it's a bit of a tradition with what's gone on in New Orleans. Mitsubishi Motors in Vegas. Vegas has always been a tradition there as well. New Mexico Bowl. New Mexico, for me, is the fiasco waiting to happen. If you don't know the backstory on this, do the Google search because it's one of them. I want the 30 for 30 on how Dreamscape, I believe, was a production company allegedly that was doing great things, and it didn't exist. So the New Mexico Bowl for me is on life support.
And ESPN hook, line, and sinker without even checking them out.
That they did. And Cherubundi Tart, they've been a part of the one in Boca for a while. Camellia Bowl, it's a part of the greater picture for the Alabama Sports Authority. That's something that they do as a part of their branding. And FBC Mortgage Cure, it has to do with tackling breast cancer. I get it. So as long as the businesses and the causes will continue to be active and think that there's something in it for them, where they're going to create this as their end of season or beginning of year promotion element, these games are going to continue where they are, even if 12 people show up in the stands.
You brought up one thing about Utah State and Kent, which is prevalent throughout the bowl season. It's kind of eating away at their credibility. Defense seems to be a suggestion in these minor bowl games rather than
Celebration Bowl. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and, I think a lot of it is where's the interest level? I mean, it's an extra game. They're playing in our neutral site. It's not the big deal it was when you and I, when the three of us were growing up, when it was kind of a big deal to play in a bowl game because there wasn't that many. And there's the other issue too. There's so many bowl games. What was it, a couple of years ago that 5 and 7s were starting to be considered for bowls? It's just
40 bowl games.
And the games are just not compelling.
40 bowl games, 80 teams. It seems like, at least to segments of the fan base, that it means more to the group of 5 schools to play in these December games than it does to anybody else. And I only base that on the experience with my alumni group. It seems to at least have some interest for the group of 5 teams. But it's an old tradition. It's an antiquated tradition. I've written about this several times on the online sports guys, because to me, it's time to get into the 21st century, really, with the bowl system.
I'd settle for the 20th century. I know.
In bowl games, by the nature of what they are they're set up for the people who put the games on. They're not there for the teams, and they're not there for the players. And I don't buy the argument that if you're 6-6 and finish 4th or 5th in your group of 5 conference, that you need to get rewarded for that.
Or below that even.
Yeah.
There was really only 2 games I invested my time in. We'll discuss those games a little later, but the only ones that I invested my time in, and one of them was actually pretty good. Arkansas State and Florida International, I was intrigued by that in the Camellia Bowl. The New Orleans Bowl turned out to be a very good game to watch between UAB and App State.
I figured
App State and UAB are probably going to be the up and comers in the group of 5, simply because the personnel, their studs, are coming back. I wanted to watch Washington and BYU
in the Chris Peterson Bowl.
Yeah.
And again, I'm hearkening back to theonlinesportsguys.com, but one of the things
excellent plug.
Thank you very much. One of the things that we did on Friday was go through the 12 best and 5 worst bowl games for this bowl season. And that App State UAB game was absolutely on my must-watch list. I didn't get to see it, unfortunately. But from what I've read, it was one heck of a game.
And you look at Florida Atlantic and SMU, the subtext there, SMU with everything that they've done this season. Getting into it, Florida Atlantic, how would they respond after losing?
I'm back, by the way.
And it's almost like you never left. And you look at the number that Florida Atlantic put up, and so Wilkie, there are reasons to watch in some of these Go 5 games, but a lot of them are basically, and we all know this, they are 3.5-hour paid programming blocks that will fill time for the network
money
in question.
Yeah.
And it is for ESPN events to make money. Good on them for having all of this programming to fill all this space. And they own these
ESPN
games.
Events owns them. But here's the thing. As I was getting to before I was rudely interrupted by the internet minions on our Skype line here. But it seems like college football wants to have their cake and eat it too. In other words, they want the playoff system and they want the bowl system, and the two really cannot coexist. And the committee, the college presidents and the ADs are hell bent, and it's not going to change from 4 teams. You can bitch all you want; it ain't going to happen anytime soon. They are so hell bent and keeping that regular season mattering, and having some kind of role for their championship games rather than just making extra bucks for the conference. So something's got to give. And, you're going to have to commit more to this playoff system, in my opinion, or go back to the bowl system where New Year's Day you're watching 9 bowl games and you have to watch them all because they all affect the outcome of the national championship picture. You don't have that anymore.
I would argue that the issue is the Rose Bowl when it comes to the playoff expansion. That's the problem game.
Well, I think that's just one of the problems because I think it's the college presidents and the ADs that they want to preserve the regular season meaning something. Yeah, the Rose Bowl let's face it, they're arrogant. They're uppity. And
in the Pac-12 refuse to cave in on there despite it being in their worst interest to stay loyal to that game.
Well, it's hurt the Pac-12 more than it's hurt the Big Ten.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But the Rose Bowl insists on being that game every January 1st that is played by the Big 12 and the Pac-12 team. And because of that, nobody wants to mess with the system. If they expanded it to an 8-game playoff, it likely would preclude them from getting the best of the Pac-12 and the best of the Big 12 or Big 10. But who does that hurt outside of them? I mean, none of the fans are going to notice the difference if you go to an 8-game playoff instead of just keeping it a 4-game playoff and the Rose Bowl becomes part of that rotation. The only people that are going to notice are the 70-year-old people making $500 gazillion by being the chairman or associate co-chairman of the Rose Bowl. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. But I just think the Rose Bowl is its own separate issue. Again, it's all about preserving the regular season, and they want the Final Four, and I think a lot of that goes into the extra games. They don't want to have those extra games on those athletes, especially with those athletes that have bright NFL futures. We're seeing it already in the bowl games where, A.J. Dillon, he's not going to play for Boston College. A couple other players are out there.
Pick a Georgia player.
Yeah, are not going to play in these bowl games because it might affect their draft status in the NFL and the risk of injury. So you've got those factors now. So I think the only way this changes, the only way is if the group of 5 gets together and decides, you know what, we're sick and tired of not being able to get to play for some kind of national championship. We're going to form our own national championship tournament or playoff or however you want to phrase it. And I think there would be value there if a television network said, okay, we'll bankroll it with this many millions or maybe billions of dollars for 12 years or however long. I mean, that's the only way you're going to shake it up.
Until those moments happen, and I think that now here's a theory for you. Let's just say that CBS, because of what might be happening, say 2023, when is the current TV contract up for debate? Up for renewal?
For the SEC?
Yeah, no, the BCS and
most of them are at 2023 to
23, 24 around there.
Okay, so let's say this. Let's say that CBS, because of them backing out of the SEC package,
right,
and ESPN and ABC jumping in, what's to stop CBS from chasing after the CFP in an expanded 8-team run?
Because it would cost them a whole heck of a lot more money than it would.
They're not. But the money that they would have been spending in the SEC,
the SEC savings would be a fraction of what ESPN is currently paying for the college football playoff. It doesn't even compare.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to go with John's theory here because I like it. Obviously CBS has the March Madness Final Four. They have a cable partner for that.
Yeah.
Cable partner for the playoff. Share costs.
Yeah.
Because this is the thing that boggles my mind about ESPN with their college football playoff. They could really increase their ratings and their revenue if they push that to ABC. With the cord cutting going on and now the streaming, I just think it's a bad business model for college football to be strictly cable. I could see CBS, and I'm going with your theory, John, because I like it a lot. Expanding it to what, 8, 12 teams? Who knows?
Yeah.
As long as they have the checks and the cash on hand to give to the NCAA or whatever it's going to be in 2023, 24, following all these dang lawsuits that are going on. Right. I can see that kind of scenario where they partner up with the cable network like they do with Turner with the with the NCAA tournament and creating that kind of atmosphere with football. I think that's intriguing. But where are you going to put the group of 5 schools? I mean, are you going to try to sell it like March Madness, where the little guy has the opportunity to, the Sun Belt team gets an opportunity to play the SEC team where it means something?
I think that if you were to get your 7-10s and your 3-14s and things like that, I think that if that's your business model and you try to chase it like it's March Madness, then I think that a CBS/cable partner, knowing the relationship with March Madness, I think that if you did a CBS-Turner relationship, say, for the sake of example, and did it like March Madness, don't think that the NCAA wouldn't sit there and go, ooh, we know what you've done with basketball. Let's see if you can do it with college football.
The thing is, NCAA doesn't have any jurisdiction over the major colleges.
Over the contract. I know it's like the old CFA deal, but I think that if you're CBS/cable partner, I think that you could do it like you do it with basketball. Though I think you could.
Phil's not moved.
Phil's not moved.
Yeah, I'm skeptical. I think you're going to get in that scenario. You get a situation where the preconceived Power Five still. You're talking about teams like Georgia and Auburn and Alabama all getting in before any of the Group of 5 schools would. I still think you run into the same problem there in terms of the inequality in the Power 5 teams, even within their own conferences. Would I like to see an expanded playoff run the way that they do in the football championship subdivision? Yeah, sure. That'd be great. They do it so it can be done. And the whole excuse by the NCAA and the presidents that they don't want kids in class or they don't want it to disrupt finals or anything like that. They do it. They just don't do it at the top level. So, yeah, I'd love to see it. I don't see it happening. I could see them doing an 8-game playoff with the same system. ESPN's not.
Yeah, an 8-team. It'd be a 7-game, 8-team playoff. So it's 7 games, 8 teams.
I don't see ESPN letting somebody else outbid them for it. The only one who I think would have the resources to do something like that would be Fox Sports and the outlets for it in terms of the various sports networks that they already have. That's just my opinion and my knowledge of the landscape in terms of the media thing, but none of that's going to come up for another couple of years. CBS losing the SEC is a whole other conversation, which it's a tradition that for a lot of people, particularly here in the Southeast, is going to be unsettling for them to see no SEC games on CBS at all. Because most grew up.
But I think that, the notion of the SEC network softens the blow at least a little bit because you're somewhat accustomed to having an ESPN property tied into the Southeastern Conference. I think that if this was someone who wasn't anyone who had any history, I think that you would have massive upheaval, pitchforks, and tiki torches. But I think that the fact that it's after the deal is over, you still have a couple of years. For me, selfishly, I want the theme music shifted over, and I want Brad Nessler to go back to ESPN.
Can't see the theme music happening. Hopefully Nessler does, because he's one of the guys when you listen to a college football game that's on, even though it's on TV and you're actually listening to it. Yeah. Nessler by far is one of the most identifiable and to me iconic voices in the sports today. Has been for a long time.
Whatever conference at CBS decides to partner with in lieu of the SEC going, they'll get that theme song. So as we kind of wrap up this discussion, I just want to throw this out there. Again, I think you got to go to one extreme or the other. Go for the playoff, go 8, go 16. I know the reasons why they won't do it in the major college level, but you got to do it, or just go back to the stinking bowl system. Because I miss New Year's Day and watching the Cotton Bowl and seeing the outcome of the Cotton Bowl. And then I got to watch the Rose Bowl because Texas got upset. Yeah. And now I got to watch the Sugar Bowl and the Orange Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl. And I mean, no doubt. Go to one extreme or the other. All right. Let's talk about some of these games as we go to break. You're listening to the review here on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The online sports guys would love to hear from you. Go to our Twitter page at OSG Sports for a comment, rant, or just whatever's on your mind about college football.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
If you want to scale a mountain, buy boots. If you want to turn your crush into something more, say hi. At Country Financial, we know protecting the things you love and preparing for tomorrow start with simple steps. So we help you take small steps today with insurance and financial services that can have a big impact on your family's future.
For all your home, auto, and life insurance needs, call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Okay, we spent some time trying to solve the college football postseason issue and our disappointment.
We solved it. They just have to listen.
Wow. 2 guys in Metro Atlanta, or 3 guys in Metro Atlanta trying to solve college football. Yeah, exactly. As I alluded to some of the games that were played over the weekend as we begin the bowl extravaganza. The 2 games I really paid attention to were Arkansas State and FIU in the Camellia Bowl in Montgomery, Alabama. The Red Wolves win that one. And, of course, App State and UAB played probably in the weekend, probably the best game of the weekend in New Orleans Bowl in front of friends and family. App State winning that one. What I liked about that game is you got App State and UAB. Look, these programs are going to be around for a while. These 2 programs are going to be the class of the group of 5 in the next few years because all their studs come back.
Except for when my Georgia Southern Eagles beat App State, but that's a whole other conversation.
Oh,
we know all about that.
Yeah, but then you lose to Liberty. What are you doing?
Had to do it. Absolutely had to do it. The game that interested me, and it wasn't a very close game, was the Chris Peterson Bowl in Las Vegas, where Washington just trounced Boise State 30.
Yeah, I saw that outcome.
And I'm not hugely surprised it was a blowout. It was just kind of fascinating to me that it was Chris Peterson's past versus his present as he goes on into the future, not being escorted by a ghost, at least not that I'm aware of here on Christmas. Right. Thank you. I got my Ichabod Crane or Scrooge reference in as best I could, without mangling it too much. And it was Boise was one of the group of 5 supposed elites, and they just got their butt handed to them.
Yes.
Washington's a good team. Washington's not a great team. They finished 8-5 on the season. They probably won't even be ranked. But it was just kind of cool to see a guy who was one of the best coaches in college football over the last couple of decades kind of get a chance to ride off into the sunset on a nice winning note.
Well, for me, go ahead, Wilkie.
Well, I was going to say about that game, that outcome was pretty much why I thought it was going to be. Washington just has too many good players on their both offensive and defensive lines. I knew they were going to dominate, and then their skill position players really were no match for Boise State's defense. They just had better athletes and better players out there, and they were playing with the emotion of Chris Peterson being his last game. This is an outcome I really saw coming. I knew it was probably going to be a 3, 4, 5 touchdown win for Washington in the Vegas Bowl. But I saw it coming. All right, go ahead, Nelly.
Well, for me, I'll just blow through the games that we've already seen so far and the reasons that I was either buzzing through them or actually stayed. Good for Buffalo to get their first ever bowl win. Fantastic for Charlotte and Will Healy to get their first ever bowl bid. Kent and Utah, we talked about it. Kent breaks a 100-year schneid for getting any kind of a postseason win of any kind. Good on them. Now got their first win in their first 4. You guys have talked about Washington and Boise, and we talked about App State and UAB. San Diego State, Central Michigan, zero interest in watching it, considering that Central Michigan, you figured that because of the defenses, the under would have been the play. We were wrong. It ended up being at 59 on the total. Florida Atlantic, SMU, we talked about the subplot there. Arkansas and FIU, we talked about that. And I think that we'll continue to just poke fun at you, Phil, because you lost to Liberty in a bowl game.
Yeah, I watched a good chunk of
that.
Good
to see Hugh Freeze, though, up and running.
I watched a chunk of that game, and it was difficult to watch. It wasn't the prettiest game I've ever seen by both sides. A couple of interceptions, a lot of turnovers. And give Liberty credit. They stuffed Georgia Southern up the middle. They could not get on the corners. They couldn't run the ball. And at the end of the day, if Georgia Southern can't run the ball, they're not winning. And
Buckshot Calvert. That's all I have to say.
First of all, a couple other observations after you, dovetailing off of you, John. Will Healy is going to be a star in the coaching circle soon. To put Charlotte in a position to in a bowl game was outstanding. That program has really struggled since they opened for business, and Will Healy is going to be a star. The other is San Diego State, and people who listen to Anthony and I on the debrief we have a great affection for Rocky Long because he's probably one of the better coaches out there that no one really knows. And that defense of San Diego State, an offensive league, is pretty stout. And that's an offense that is a grinded out offense. Probably 21, 24 points is enough to win. They really went at it in the Mexico Bowl against a pretty good Central Michigan defense. Central Michigan found out that they couldn't keep up with that San Diego State offense. And that was a really good win for Rocky Long and the Aztecs.
No doubt, averaging only 19 points a game, giving up on defense. And Jim McElwain is going to have to sleep with the Sharks for the offseason.
Oh, I was wondering if that was coming up.
Ouch. Ouch. All right, so we got
games coming up. All right, look ahead. Let's go for it.
So Monday, we got UCF and Marshall. Have any feelings for that one, Jan?
UCF's a 16-point favorite. I don't know if you get to 16. I think Marshall covers, but I think UCF wins.
Yeah, I have to go with UCF here. The known quantity. Not the best season that they've had over the last couple of years, but it's still enough for them to get a win over Marshall.
Then we've got on Tuesday, on Christmas Eve, Hawaii and BYU. BYU is a 1-point favorite on the island at 7-5, going up against 9-5 Hawaii.
Hawaii actually had a pretty good season. You don't get to hear too much about them here on the East Coast, but they weren't bad this year. I like the Rainbow Warriors at home. BYU will give them a good test. Don't see this being a super high scoring game, but I could be wrong.
No, I like the under there. The total is 64 right now, and BYU is a 1-point favorite, so I like that. I'll go with Hawaii and the under when it comes to that one. We've got 2 on Boxing Day. The Independence Bowl, which is no longer sponsored by a piece of
it has for a couple
garden
years.
Equipment. No, but now it's sponsored by a sports bar. And so, Wilkie, we are now officially to Boxing Day. Louisiana Tech and Miami in Shreveport. Miami's 6 and your total 49.5.
Well, if Miami's interested, they're going to dominate Louisiana Tech. Too many good athletes on that defense. Jaron Williams, this is his time to shine against La Tech. I just think La Tech's probably got a little inferior defense than what he's used to going toward. But if they're not interested, La Tech has a pretty good chance to winning this one.
That's what I'm looking at, Bill.
This is one of the worst games on the board for me. Arguably the worst game on the board. Two teams, one that just was somehow, I'm surprised Miami made it to a bowl game, especially after losing to Florida International. But then again, as long as you have a pulse, you can make a bowl game.
Yep.
Against a Louisiana Tech team playing near home, I guess somebody has to win. Miami should win. I don't know that they necessarily will, though.
Other game on Boxing Day. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead and wrap it up, Wilkie.
Well, I was going to say the next game of the day is in Detroit, the Quick Lane Bowl between Pitt and Eastern Michigan.
Ugh.
Pitt's an 11, and your total is 49, and this
Pitt
one
should dominate.
Yeah, they should. So I'm going to go with Pitt and the under. I don't know if Eastern Michigan's going to get a whole lot of points on the board.
Oh, God, this is one that unless you've got family in town that you just completely want to avoid this game. There is nothing interesting about this game whatsoever.
Oh, now come on. There's going to be a horde of people coming from Ypsilanti, Michigan to watch the Eagles in a bowl game in Motown. It's going to be a party atmosphere with Eagles everywhere. And
party on.
What's the over and under of the temperature in Detroit that day?
Let's go 30.
22.
Okay, so 30 is the number. I'll take the under as well.
All right.
Now, on December 27th, the day after Boxing Day, we have five bowl games to tell you about.
Yep.
Military Bowl between North Carolina and Temple. Carolina's favored in this game. I don't know. Sam Howell, this could be a coming out party. He's going to have a national presence in this game. This might be a coming out party for Sam Howell, and the Heels probably wins this one.
This one's only mildly more exciting than the Pitt Eastern Michigan game.
Wow.
Yeah, North Carolina and Temple playing on a Saturday before New Year's in the Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis. Okay, a game put on by a defense contractor.
Northrop Grumman, you know it. Yep.
Is it Carolina like 6-6 or 7-5, and Temple 6-6 or 7-5? Any interest?
Temple's 8-4. North Carolina 6-6.
Oh, excuse me.
Carolina should win because look,
they should.
Sam Howell this is going to be his game to showcase his skills nationally, and if he can put up some big numbers, he's going to kind of work his way into the Heisman hype in the summertime. That's how it is. Pinstripe Bowl in the Bronx. Michigan State and Wake, and Brian Lewerke should have a huge game in his last game as a Spartans. He's going to get up against the pass defense. I don't think could stop the three of us if we were a quarterback in the Spartans. And Lewerke was one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten, so he should have a big game. And I like Michigan State in this game.
Michigan State 3.5, the total 49.5. So I'll go Michigan State in the over.
Another in the long list of reasons why the bowl system should be thrown out. This game there's nothing, again, appealing about this game. Two blatantly mediocre schools in the Big Ten and the ACC playing at Yankee Stadium in New York, probably in front of hundreds. But if you're looking to kill time on a Saturday afternoon with parents during the holiday, then I suppose this is the game for you. I'll take Wake Forest just because I can.
Next
just because you can.
Yes. To the Texas Bowl in Houston, Oklahoma State and A&M. A&M is 7, and your total 53.5. I'll go Oklahoma State and the over.
This is the best game of the day. by far. No question to ask. This is in my top 12 games of the bowl season. A good matchup. Lots of points should be scored here. This, if I'm home, might be worth tuning into because you're talking about two teams that are going to score a lot of points. Yeah, I'm with John on taking the over here. I like A&M, though, with a little bit better defense for the win.
I can't go with A&M. I like A&M, too, because I want to see the matchup between Chuba Hubbard and that Texas A&M run defense, because the A&M run defense is not that bad. In fact, that defensive unit with Mike Elko in charge is pretty darn good. And I like the Aggies in this game simply because I don't think Oklahoma State's going to be able to stop Texas A&M's offense. One of those bowls that always produces a crazy outcome, the Holiday Bowl in San Diego and Southern Cal and Iowa. God, it sounds like, why don't we call this bowl Rose Bowl Junior?
Yeah, Rose
Big
Bowl
10,
South.
Pac-12. Okay, so you've got a Southern Cal team that, man, really they just kind of dysfunctional, don't you think? That's the best word I can think of. Against an Iowa team that offense just does enough to win with Nate Stanley in charge, and defense is stout. So I tend to like Iowa in this game.
Iowa is 2 and your total 52.5.
Isn't Nate Stanley like an 8th-year senior? He's been playing for them since the 1990s, I thought.
It's like Brian Lewerke at Michigan State.
The Freddie Wagan plan.
This game, again, exists because it can. USC showed some flashes late in the season of being a possibly growing and improving team in 2020 season. Iowa just doesn't interest me in any way, shape, or form, even during the regular season. They're about as dull as it comes when it comes to college football. And I'm not watching this one.
Well, a couple of notes on that one. Southern Cal's pass offense is fantastic. The pass defense for Iowa, top 10. That's going to be fun to watch to see who wins in that matchup. And while we're on the subject of Iowa, let's pay our respects to Hayden Fry, who passed away a few days ago. One of the great coaches in college football, and really a guy that kind of brought the psyche up of people in Iowa in the 80s during the farm crisis, and his being out front of that with the A&F sticker on the helmet that still exists on those Iowa helmets.
Yeah.
On to the snack of the favorite snack of my kids, bowl, the Cheez-It Bowl, which is pretty common around here in my household. Air Force and Washington State. I'm going to go with Phil's interest level here, and it's maybe a 1 on a scale of 1 to 10.
You don't like the Irony Bowl here?
The Irony Bowl.
The best part about this game may be the sponsor.
I'm just looking at Washington State's defensive numbers, and this is, oh my gosh, wow.
Air Force is a 3 and your total 68.5. I got to go with Air Force in the over.
Yeah,
it could be an exciting game if somebody gets a lifetime supply of Cheez-Its for the win.
Oh, there you go.
Raise the stakes.
When you've got a middle of the road offense against the defense, it's one of the worst in the country. I tend to like Air Force in this game. They should win this one pretty easily. Okay, and then Saturday we've got the Cotton Bowl between Memphis and Penn State. Like the matchup, wonder where Memphis is going to be without their head coach.
That's the question for me.
I like this game a lot. It's an intriguing matchup of one team, Memphis, who can play some offense and put some points up on the board against a Penn State team, to me, that was overrated all season long. They had their pass defense struggled against pretty much everybody they played, and I think it plays into what Memphis does very well. If out of all the games on the board, this is the one that could be the Group of 5 upset win. Mark my words.
Wow. Okay.
I think it's going to be tough with their head coach now, John's alma mater.
Yeah, and I think that Memphis covers. I think that Penn State wins. I think that 7 is. I think it's a big number, especially at noon kickoff at the Cotton Bowl on a Saturday. So
at Jerry World.
And I'll go. Oh, that's true. I'll go Penn State cover, and let's go the under just because of that.
Yeah, I like Penn State by a wide margin. They may be overrated, but I just don't think Memphis is going to be up for this one since Mike Norvell went to Tallahassee. Camping World Bowl in Orlando might be. Wonder how many people are going to be at this game. Iowa State's going to bring a ton of people. Notre Dame will probably bring a few people. Like the matchup, I think this means so much to Iowa State. Matt Campbell has really established something there. He needs some signature wins. This would be a signature win if they can get the win over the Irish.
It would be much more fun and make the weekend a lot more fun if Iowa State won that game. So I'm with you. I'm taking Iowa State.
As much as I'd like to take Iowa State, I don't know if they can do it. I'm not going to glorify the head coach at Notre Dame by referring to him by name. I think that Notre Dame probably gets the win. I don't know if they get to 54.
I'm going to go with Iowa State in this one. I think they're going to have the emotion on their side. They're going to be focused. I think Matt Campbell is one of the better in-game coaches in college football. And I think it's going to be a sea of red and gold and cyclone power all over Orlando. We also have next Saturday our first 2 semifinal games. So let's give them some justice here. We'll start off with the game that will be played right down the road from our houses between LSU and Oklahoma. I think LSU is going to win this one and win this one big. Oklahoma's defense has played better, but they're going to be no match for Joe Burrow.
Agreed, and I'm just going to say that LSU is a 2-touchdown favorite, and the total 76. I don't know if they get to the total. I think that LSU does cover that big double-digit number.
And LSU has enough defense to keep Oklahoma from scoring. The Sooners struggled late in the season. They weren't as sharp as the competition level increased. The competition level here isn't going to get any higher. LSU in a romp.
It's going to be probably a 69-48 type of game because Oklahoma can score, and LSU, look, they've outscored everyone this year. Their defense is decent, but not great. And Oklahoma's offense is great. But LSU's is what's beyond great.
Fan-effing spectacular.
There you go. And then of all the semifinals, the best one, the one that's appointment television, Clemson and Ohio State. You got to love the quarterback matchup. You got to love the running back matchup. You got to love the matchup between the receivers. We're just talking about the skill guys here. Mm-hmm. But to me is going to be watching those offensive and defensive lines in the trenches, because when you talk about that type of football, in the semifinals, those are the two that had the best athletes and the best players in the trenches.
This should be by far, without question, the best of the 40-game bowl season. This is the best matchup, and if you don't watch a single solitary other bowl game this season, you need to watch this one. It's going to be, to quote good old JR, it's going to be an old-fashioned slob knocker. I love both teams are really, really good. I think Ohio State has the advantage here only because Clemson, outside of the one game that they fell asleep on versus North Carolina, really hasn't been pushed that hard this season. And I'm interested to see what happens when they get pushed. If they fight back, they've got enough firepower to run with Ohio State.
No, they'll fight back.
Question is, what are they going to do when they have a team that can equal them on both sides of the ball?
Well, we saw that with Ohio State. I mean, Wisconsin punched them in the mouth pretty hard in the first half of the Big Ten title game. And how did Ohio State respond? Well, held them scoreless in the second half and put it in a different gear. Threw a couple of haymakers, a few jabs, and delivered the knockout blow late in the late rounds. So we know with Ohio State's body of work, they have that. Clemson, look, that's a tough, resilient program. If they do get in that situation, I think they've got the mental toughness to overcome as well. It's not their fault they're in the ACC, and it's, well, we all know what the ACC football was this year. I guess the best way to put it is not good.
Hot garbage.
Yeah.
Clemson and the rest of the league playing like the MAC.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, we talked about whether the ACC or the American. How would you compare the two? And I kind of like the American in that matchup, but that's for another podcast and another time. But you're right. This is going to be the best matchup. Clemson and Ohio State, of course. Saying that, it's going to be one other team is going to destroy the other team. That's how it works in college football, right?
Yeah. I've got to go with Ohio State. Clemson's a 2.5-point favorite. I think Ohio State wins it outright. Do they get to 63, though? That's the question. I'm looking at something north of 63, probably 35, 31, somewhere in there. I think it'll get to at least 66.
Yep, I'm with you. Both sentiments sound pretty much on track with what I'm thinking here, too. Great game. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be fun to watch. I can't wait to see it.
I want to see what kind of pass rush Clemson can get on Ohio State. If they get some kind of pass rush, this is what their specialty is. And if they can stop J.K. Dobbins, Clemson's the number one defense against the rush in college football. I really like Clemson in this game, and I like Clemson probably by 2 touchdowns in this one. I just think they've got the tools defensively. I think Ohio State really hasn't had to rely on their pass game, and that's going to happen if J.K. Dobbins is stopped. And we all know what Trevor Lawrence can do through the air. Clemson's probably got the best 2, maybe 3 receivers in the country. So I just like all the weapons Clemson has, and I can see the Tigers winning this by 2 touchdowns, and we get an LSU Clemson all Tiger affair in New Orleans.
Bold move, Cotton. Bold move.
Yeah.
All right. That's what we're here for. All right, guys.
Put a bow on it.
All right, guys. I hope you guys get everything you wanted for Christmas. So I
wide variety of soccer T-shirts.
Yeah, that's right. We got a few of those in our annual Christmas party, which was fun. So we'll be back next week to talk about the rest of the bowl season and which ones we care about and which ones we think are decent games. So for Phil, for John, I'm John. So long, everybody, and enjoy the bowl games all week.